Welcome back, everyone. This is the show that today will put two master craftsmen up against one another. We're not making swords or having a bake-off.
That smells great.
Nay, this episode is all about famed directors Ridley Scott versus James Cameron. That means we have aliens and Terminators and Blade Runners, deep-sea creatures, Martians, which are technically okay, I guess, aliens. And it wasn't really a Martian, it was just Matt Damon. Look, I'm just the guy lucky enough to host this show. I feel like... I'm the king of the world! Relax, Leo, it's still early in your movie. Let's see how you're doing a couple hours from now. Now, if this was James Cameron versus Ridley's brother, Tony Scott, it'd be no contest. Tony Scott directed Top Gun. That's it. Go home, Jim. I don't care if you've actually touched the real Titanic. No, there's two O's in Goose.
That's right. Nice, man.
But Ridley Scott taking on Cameron, that's a knockdown, drag-out, slobber-knocking slugfest. Here's how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Round 3, iconic moments. And then we'll do a wild card round to determine once and for all who is the king of sci-fi and occasionally action. A little bit of romance in there. And filmmaking in general.
Bullshit, man!
Is it the guy who directed Alien or the dude who made Piranha 2? I'm kidding, James. I'm not going to hold that one against you. But it is going to come up. The Spawning! Here we go.
My name is Gladiator.
Come with me if you want to live.
Round 1, box office. If a director makes a movie and no one shows up to see it, does it make a sound? Well, these two fellas don't have to worry about that, as they're responsible for at least 300 of my hard-earned dollars being spent at the theater. And that would have been more, but I had to sneak into Terminator 2. I was too young. Boy, felt good to get that off my chest.
This is deep.
Hey, speaking of chests, remember when that alien busted through that dude's chest in the accurately titled Alien? Ridley Scott's first blockbuster in 1979 would go on to gross almost $400 million worldwide adjusted for inflation, and that's not even in his top 3 box office achievements. Gladiator made a shade under $800 million, The Martian did $680 million, and Hannibal, the movie about the guy who's the chef, that grossed $582 million across the globe. All told, Ridley Scott's catalog has racked up over $6 billion on planet Earth. And if it sounds like I'm stacking the deck for Ridley, I am. And it still doesn't matter. James Cameron is a box office juggernaut, the likes of which we've never seen. When the guy emerges from the icy depths of the bottom of the ocean to actually make a film, we all show up in droves. Remember how Ridley's 25 movies combined to make $6 billion?
Yep.
Yeah, James Cameron surpassed that total with 2 movies. Adjusted for inflation, Titanic made $3.8 billion and Avatar added $3.3 billion. $7.1 billion! Now I feel bad calling him Jim.
Unbelievable.
And it's not like Jim Money is a 2-hit wonder. No, you take all of his movies, especially his relationship with a guy named Schwarzenegger, who can be a robot or a spy, and you wind up with a grand total of $9.5 billion over just 8 movies. And I'll give you an extra $100 million if you want to count the Aquaman movie he did on Entourage.
James Cameron's directing Aquaman.
Fuck you. Where'd you hear that, Friendster?
Whether it's total box office or per film average, Cameron has an easy victory here. Even though Ridley Scott's flicks make, on average, $250 million worldwide, Cameron is a bankable $1 billion guy every time he hits the clamps. Ridley Scott does score some points for launching his career first, and thus giving James Cameron a property like Alien on which to further his own career, but in the words of Hudson, in this round, it's game over, man. Game over. James Cameron goes up 1-0.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Round 2, Tomatometer Audience Score. Here's where Ridley Scott has a chance to even the match. In a career spanning 6 decades so far, he's made critically acclaimed films in a variety of genres. Meanwhile, that James Cameron guy just keeps making crowd-pleasing blockbusters, right? Actually, it's Cameron whose movies have the higher average on the Tomatometer. He's at 78%, while Scott is on the lower side, but still fresh at 62%. But Ridley has way more at-bats than James, so let's look at the best of the best, starring Eric Roberts.
This is the only thing I know I am good at.
James Cameron still has the edge. 1984's Terminator has a perfect 100%, besting 1979's Alien, which is 98%. Cameron also has Aliens, thanks Ridley, and Terminator 2 at 93%, while Scott has The Duelist, The Martian, and Blade Runner all in the low 90s. Unfortunately for Ridley, the only place where he dominates Cameron is at the other end of the spectrum.
You don't think that's a bit cold?
If you combine these directors' most rotten efforts, Ridley Scott has made 9 of them, including stinkers like A Good Year and Exodus, Gods and Kings. Cameron's only entry in the rotten side of things is Piranha 2, Spawning, but hey, we all did things we regret in college. How about the audience score? It's a closer ball game, but Cameron still gets the nod, averaging 75% to Scott's 67%. Can I say something that... Right, it's my show. Look, there's quality over quantity, but Ridley's quantity still has a ton of quality in it.
What?
You're right, maybe I should talk less. I respect a guy who is obsessed with making movies consistently and giving us something new every time out. But just because Cameron has made fewer flicks, that doesn't mean he isn't giving us new takes and expanding the horizons of what's possible in cinema. Ridley Scott has made some of my favorite films ever. Gladiator, American Gangster, Black Rain. With Michael Douglas, it is awesome, if I remember correctly. But as loud as I can shout from the rooftops that I love watching Matt Damon grow potatoes on a red planet, the Tomatometer has spoken, and the audience has agreed. James Cameron wins the round, and all of a sudden is up 2-0.
You're fired.
Round 3, iconic moments. So now Ridley Scott's back is against the wall, and his fans are hoping he can rally. Luckily, this round is all about the moments that we, the movie-going audience, remember. And nothing says instant offense off the bench like an alien popping through a chest. Dear God. A moment so good it was recreated in 1987's Spaceballs. Anytime Mel Brooks makes fun of you, you did something right.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
Both directors have had more than their fair share of iconic moments. As a matter of fact, can you imagine any Oscars montage ever without a sweeping shot of the Titanic or of Maximus bellowing, "Are you not entertained?" Movies are just a bunch of moments strung together, and both Cameron and Scott are masters of having the story stick with us long after the film has ended. Most of Jimmy C's best moments are blockbuster storytelling at its finest, with a mix of real human emotion combined with cutting-edge effects. In his earlier days, this might result in the suspense-filled claustrophobia of a T-800 threatening,
I'll be back.
or everyone's favorite pretend Navy SEAL, Michael Biehn, uttering the iconic,
Come with me if you want to live.
Once the higher-ups decided to give this promising director, a budget, we got massive reveals like the underwater alien township in the abyss and the stunning action sequences of Terminator 2. Look at that liquid metal fella go. Liquid metal, it's the Crystal Pepsi of the future.
What the fuck is it?
Cameron would further both his own storytelling and the visual effects industry as a whole with his beloved Avatar. We're still waiting on the sequels, but in the meantime, feast your eyes on an epic battle scene that is for the very survival of Pandora. That's right, it's not just a good Valentine's Day gift card for your significant other anymore. Pandora is also a planet full of pterodactyls with plug-and-play technology. But if you really want iconic, then you have to go to the James Cameron sensation that made hearts swoon, break, but ultimately go on. Of course I'm talking about Tom Arnold in True Lies.
She even took the ice cube trays out of the freezer. What kind of a sick bitch takes the ice cube trays out of the freezer?
He was great, but sure, I give Titanic points for having a bevy of iconic shots. Personally, my most emotionally resonant moment is the band continuing to play as the ship is sinking. As a comic, I've done gigs like that. And just like the band, my check did not clear afterwards.
Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight.
So bring it on, Ridley. How can you counter all of these stellar effect shots in some of the biggest sci-fi blockbusters ever? Well, it appears Mr. Scott's strategy is to spread the floor with virtually every category of movie imaginable. His filmography could fill a blockbuster video, if that was still a thing. With his high-concept outer space sci-fi nightmare Alien, it's the visceral imagery of human versus xenomorph combat that begat all those cool battles we'd see in James Cameron's sequel Aliens. But Ridley can also make us think about the future we're weaving for ourselves. Check out the underrated Tears in the Rain sequence from Blade Runner.
All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
He has the emotional bandwidth and sweeping vision required to put us right in the middle of battle, in diverse settings, such as the sprawling militaristic bloodbaths in Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, and Kingdom of Heaven. He can also give us the smaller but no less impactful image of a simple slap in the face. Frank Lucas may be a drug kingpin, but with one flick of her wrist, Mama proves she can still ground him for the weekend.
None of me!
Demi Moore shaved her head, Matt Damon went to Mars, Susan and Gina drove off a cliff, and Nick Cage went even crazier than usual for this guy.
Hey, buddy, ever heard of a line?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
And Charlize Theron, she agreed to die one of the all-time preposterously stupid deaths in cinematic history. Why? Because A-list thespians respect a master craftsman, and Ridley Scott's legacy of iconic moments earned him that rank. So as bummed as I am that Tom and Arnold making Bill Paxton pee his pants in True Lies won't get James Cameron the win in this round, I am thrilled that Ridley Scott gets the nod and is back in the ballgame. It's 2-1. Keep pushing, Ridley.
Yes! Yes!
And now it's time for the wild card round, Influence. You'd be hard-pressed to find any director of this generation, or from future generations, after we get that whole war against the machine things out of the way, that don't cite Ridley Scott or James Cameron as prime influences on their careers. Just imagine a horror movie fan who never got to see Alien, or a sci-fi fan that was denied Terminator, Blade Runner, or Avatar. Simply put, James Cameron has changed the landscape of cinema forever. He stood on the shoulders of effects pioneers like Spielberg, Lucas, and yes, Ridley Scott to make the theater experience feel more intense, realistic, and memorable than it ever was before. Plus, he assisted in writing Point Break, which was directed by his then-wife, Catherine Bigelow. Did I just say Point Break? You're damn right I did. That might even help him compete against Top Gun.
You want the ultimate, you gotta be willing to pay the ultimate price.
Meanwhile, it's fair to ask the question, do we even get James Cameron if not for Sir Ridley Scott? Yeah, I said sir. He's a knight. Not only does that give him points in this round, it also gives me relief that I never called him Rid Dog in this episode.
Got the wrong guy, pal.
So he's got the knighthood thing. He was also listed as the 10th most influential Brit in a 2004 vote, which was before he made classics like American Gangster, The Martian, and Prometheus. Okay, maybe Prometheus isn't a classic, but it's visually stunning. And it's a great reminder to all astronauts to stop having sex in space. Just say no. Control yourselves, you filthy heathens. Wait till you get back home. Regardless of how you feel about Prometheus, you gotta admit, it's better than The Counselor, right?
Yeah.
American Cinematheque Award winner Sir Rid Dog has been nominated for 4 Best Director Oscars, and though he's still looking for his first win, his movies have won a total of 9 Oscars. James Cameron owns a tuxedo as well, as his flicks have won 21 Oscars, including a Best Director statue for himself thanks to that little boat movie. These fellas have an influence over entertainment that runs so deep we don't even realize it sometimes. Ridley Scott directed that landmark 1984 Apple ad that aired during Super Bowl 18. It had something to do with George Orwell, but I love it because it distracted my family from the fact that Marcus Allen and the Raiders were embarrassing my beloved Washington defense. It was a disgusting game and should never be re-aired. James Cameron got his start working on Roger Corman models, and he even worked on the special effects from Escape from New York. For good measure, he was also the first person to successfully perform a solo dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Now, I'm not an oceanographer, but I met Richard Dreyfuss once, and so I'll say that that's pretty deep. If it's legacy and respect you want, it's impossible to go wrong with either director. But even though we don't get Cameron without Ridley Scott, in the year of our Lord, 2020, I would have to lean towards James Cameron to win this wildcard round of influence. I don't like going against the British Knight, but unfortunately, Judgment Day has arrived.
Hasta la vista, baby.
So James Cameron wins the rounds 3-1, and I'd look like a completely handsome jackass if I changed course now and somehow gave my vote to Ridley Scott, right? James Cameron is my winner, but let's just have some fun and ask ourselves, who wins in a fight between Xenomorphs and Terminators? Here's my take. So the Terminators would have the technology necessary to defeat the more primitive aliens. However, we know once we get aliens that predators are bound to show up, and not all the watery aluminum in the world can save the machines from the advanced hunting society and quality teamwork showcased by predators. So aliens lose to Terminators then lose to Predators, one alien sneaks away to go procreate, then John Connor goes back in time to start mayhem all over again. Not since I played Super Nintendo has one person loved hitting the reset button as much as John Connor.
Yeah. Major drag, huh?
James Cameron edges by Ridley Scott in my book, but I can barely read. Now it's up to you, the faithful viewer, to render the real verdict. Comment below right now with the director you prefer, and feel free to give your logic behind said choice. I'm not even going to ask the question because I know I entertained you. And if you still need something productive to do, draw me like one of your French girls. It was either that or I'll be back. What did you want?